Hello, welcome. We're back with some more Australian comedy this week. So before we start though, so that you can write your great Australian novel, Cockie Press 12-week novel writing masterclass is available. Help you really get that great Australian novel done. Links below. So, with that out of the way, let's start with our next comic novel. So, I told you last time when we looked at They're a Weird Mob, we were going to have a look at some comic novels. More than one. And I also told you that Australian comedy can get a bit dark, shall we say. And dark is definitely where we're going with this week's book, which is Death in Brunswick by Boyd Oxlade. Okay, now this was made into a film in about 1990 with Sam Neill and John Clark, the great late John Clark. Both New Zealanders who we nicked, because that's what we do in Australia. We see people over the pond, across there that we like, and we nick them. They're ours now. They might complain, but they're ours. John Clark especially is ours. We own it. It's ours. Anyway, the film is different to the book. We are talking about the book. Okay, film is good, is funny, but the book it has a different ending. That's the biggest thing about the difference between these. The film and the book are actually quite parallel up to a point, and then the film takes a different chart, and it has a lighter ending to it. The book is really dark. Okay, so perhaps you will remember my Patrick White video, 12 or lessons I learned from Patrick White. I'll stick a link along here somewhere. That one of the things that I talk about in that video is the grotesque. The idea of the grotesque is part of Australian writing. And this little book can certainly manage the grotesque in spades. Haha, pun intended. This can manage grotesque in spades. If you don't know where Brunswick is, I'll start out at the beginning with the title. Death in Brunswick. It's an echo of Death in Venice. But unlike Thomas Mann's great novel to the decline of and decadence, this has certainly got the decline. The decadence, I'd be questioning the decadence of Brunswick. Brunswick is a inner city suburb of Melbourne. If you're in Sydney, it's like Redfern or Surrey Hills. Okay. In the 1980s, when this was written, Brunswick was a rundown inner city suburb that had experienced what is known as the White Flight. So the Anglo working class original inhabitants of Brunswick had left for the outer suburbs of Melbourne, more prosperous suburbs, leaving the post-World War II migrants, so mostly Greek and Italian and Turkish people, have now come into Brunswick in this book. So this is pre-gentrification. Brunswick, Surrey Hills, all of those inner city suburbs that were like, we don't like these are slums, are now got re-gentrified, and you'll find hipsters with like hipster beards and all sorts of things. I actually lived in Surrey Hills, sort of in the late early 2000s, so just before the real full-on hipsterism came in. I mean, it was pretty hipster. I mean, it was pretty, it was always very, it cost a lot to live there at the time, at a little tiny room. But it was quite fun. I mean, that sort of vibe is quite fun. I'd walk down Oxford Street. Oxford Street, if you don't know Oxford Street in Sydney, it's the street the gay and lesbian Mardi Gras is on. So you go out to get your paper on a Sunday morning, and you see people coming back from the gay clubs in leather and harnesses and things. It was real fun. It was genuinely fun. You know, you walk down Oxford Street, because I was right up near there. You walk down Oxford Street and past the sex shops and the weird things, and it was like really cool. It was a really great place to be. And that's the sort of thing that you get in those inner city suburbs. They can be a bit quirky and weird. Anyway, that was before the hipsters invaded and everything got priced out of everything, and you know, they make everything a little bit bland. They think that they're being quirky, but the actual quirky is like, that's gone somewhere else because they're boring. Yeah. They think that they're doing that, but no. Anyway, so back to our book. So this is pre-hipster Brunswick. This is nasty, grimy, dirty, poor, cheap Brunswick, a perfect place for Carl, who is a loser. Carl is a overgrown man boy. He's a chef and he's a loser, and he's got a loser job in this club that's run by the Greeks, and he has a Turkish kitchen hand who's dealing drugs, because that's the whole world that this is. He also starts to flirt with the very young barmaid and forms a relationship with her. And then one day at work, his mother is staying with him. His mother, he has agreed to look after his mother, God knows why, because they don't get along. But his mother is staying with him in his cruddy little place in Brunswick. He doesn't get on with her. I think guilt is why he's looking after her. So basically Carl's life is in the toilet. It can't get much worse. Well, it can get much worse, because the death in Brunswick is not his death. The death in Brunswick is the Turkish kitchen hands, who he accidentally kills. Yeah. Carl's possibly only friend is Dave. Dave is he's a working class bloke. He's got a firebrand political wife. He's got kids, and he works at the cemetery. He's a grave digger. Now, Carl, in a panic, because he's a giant man boy, calls Dave. I need your help. Something's happened at work. I need your help. Thus begins the disposal of Mustafa's body. Dave has a plan, and they're going to get rid of the body by putting it into there's going to be a funeral the next day. The grave is already dug, and it's a double grave, so there's a coffin in there already. They're going to put Mustafa's body into the coffin. Yeah. I'm just going to leave you, because you're going to have to read this book to find out exact details, but I'm going to leave you with the words corpse stomping scene, which is the funniest scene in the book. But just corpse stomping scene. That's all I'm going to leave you with. So this is disposal, successful disposal of the body is not the end of this book. And this is where it diverges. It's at this point that it diverges radically from the film. The film gives it a much cheerier rendering. This one is a lot darker and more predatory. So I will leave you to read the book, but it is absolutely Australian humour. This is the dark humour. I told you we'd laugh at just about anything. Well, this is laughing at quite a lot. There's quite a lot to laugh at in this book. It is a very, very funny book. It's a fairly light book. It's just a comic novel. It's not a lot that I can spin out of it. It's playing on Death in Venice. Otterline will bring you Death in Venice at some point. That's a much more substantial book than this. It's got the echo of Death in Venice. Death in Venice might be squalid and whatnot, but it's nowhere near as squalid as Death in Brunswick. Death in Brunswick takes the cake if you're after squalid and sordid. So it is funny. It is kind of disgusting, the grossness of it, which, as I said, we talked about with Patrick White, is an essential part of Australian comedy. So there's Death in Brunswick. I highly recommend it. Really, you want to understand Australian comedy, especially more contemporary Australian comedy, as opposed to the older stuff like They're a Weird Mob. Death in Brunswick. Try it out. Okay. Next time I see you, I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. I'm going to bring you one of our late departed kings of comic writing, Clive James. But I'm not going to talk about a whole load of stuff with Clive James. We're going to look at a single scene. Yes, we're going to be looking at the Billy Cart scene from the Unreliable Memoirs by Clive James. So look out for that one in the next few weeks. So until I see you again, have great hunting in Australian literature, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye.
If you would like to support this channel, come across to the Black Cockie Press website, www.blackcockiepress.com.au, where you will find books and other materials to help with your writing.